How will you cater for adolescent learners and what they need to engage in learning? In order to cater for adolescent learners, you need different strategies to engage the learners that align with both their cognitive and social development. In order to cater for this, in this lesson sequence, I would introduce inquiry-based and collaborative activities to teach poetry within the lessons. For example, within lesson 1 of the sequence, instead of doing a passive introduction to poetic techniques where you just explain them, it would be better to get students to work in small groups to analyze song lyrics or literary techniques they already know, and then comparing them as a group to classical poetry. This approach allows for us to use learners' interest in music of whatever genre they like, as well as social interaction, to foster engagement. As Daniel Siegel says in his talk on the teenage brain, the self is not living in isolation, and adolescents in this time are looking to move closer to their peers, so allowing them to will get them more engaged. By making the learning more interactive and relevant to learners' lives, students are more likely to feel connected to the content and motivated to participate and put in effort. Engagement also supports behavioral, emotional, and cognitive development. This means students continue to be active in their learning journey. I would also utilize problem-based learning strategies. As Pendergast says in her talk on engaging adolescent learners, problem-based learning aligns well with the changes happening to this age group. I do this by using questioning and discussion points like how do poems like, for example, Still I Rise by Maya Angelou, reflect social issues. This encourages deep and critical thinking. This also helps strengthen and utilize adolescent learners' growing ability to make connections between texts and real-world experiences. This also strengthens their analytical skills and ability to infer information through collaboration via discussions and collaborative analysis. Students will also develop their ability to articulate ideas. This improves both academic as well as social engagement in the classroom. I would also use an interdisciplinary approach by linking poetry to historical and cultural contexts in order for students to understand the broader relevance and significance of poems and texts. How would you utilize the positive changes in a teenage brain? Throughout adolescence, the brain goes through synaptic pruning and myelination. This enhances the cognitive efficiency of students and allows them to have more deep and analytical thinking. As Daniel Siegel says, pruning allows students to have the way they communicate be more efficient. To utilize this positive change, lesson 2 would be changed to focus on comparative analysis, to encourage students to examine and engage with different poets and their use of literary techniques. This also engages students' growing critical thinking skills and the ability to form complex connections between different ideas. I would also incorporate interactive digital annotation tools like Padlet to allow for collaborative poem analysis. This allows for students to engage in stimulating learning environments that are also in line with their cognitive strengths. I would also incorporate performative elements such as spoken word poetry, as teenagers are driven by dopamine and risk-taking. And as Daniel Siegel says, teenagers have increased release levels of dopamine. This performative element allows for a safe risk-taking practice like public speaking to be engaged with by certain students, as it is something new both with what you're thinking as a student. This also enhances students' ability to engage meaningfully with poetic language like rhythm and expression, furthering the cognitive and social development students, encouraging them to share poem interpretations in small groups is an effective change to make. Furthermore, the introduction of something like reflective journaling exercises will give students an opportunity to self-reflect and develop and use their growing metacognition as they allowed time to monitor their thought processes and learning growth. How would you set up the learning environment for students who may experience trauma? Students that have experienced trauma within their lives require a predictable, safe, and emotionally supportive learning environment. To achieve this, I would restructure classroom discussions to ensure that participation is low pressure and inclusive. Rather than cold calling students, which may make them uncomfortable or even scared, using a tactic like think, pair, share is an effective tool that allows students time to process before engaging in discussion and allows them the low pressure opportunity to engage in collaboration by only having to share in a pair with the option of sharing to the whole class. Additionally, to cater for a predictable and safe learning environment, having classroom routines and lesson outlines as well as learning goals clearly outlined at the beginning of a class, and even on the board or up the front of the class, is an effective way to create a safe and predictable environment. Having predictability in the class structure helps to reduce anxiety and foster a sense of safety and security for students who have experienced trauma and allows them to focus on their learning. As trauma-impacted students are more vulnerable to anxiety, depression, and other issues, creating this environment of predictability and safety is important in fostering engagement in a healthy learning environment. I would also integrate mindfulness strategies in these lesson sequences, such as a brief moment at the start of class of reflection, guided breathing, or a calm poem reading, to further build and create that calm and safe environment for trauma-impacted students to enter. Providing a structured, repeated, and calm start to a lesson allows all students to settle into a focused and learning mindset. It also supports the emotional well-being of all students, including trauma-impacted students. As trauma-impacted students tend to struggle with more with feelings of helplessness and focus on negative memories, I would also ensure all feedback given is framed constructively, emphasizing effort and growth from students rather than their performance, while also engaging with students meaningfully whilst giving them feedback to build their confidence and reduce negative emotions. I would also point out and praise growth and progress from students, as when students see gains in their academic outcomes through their own efforts, they in turn become more motivated to work hard, according to Pendergast and Main. How would you acknowledge students who are experiencing adversity in their homes, and what accommodations could we make? Students that experience adversity at home could struggle with focus, participation, or completing classwork as a result. In order to effectively support them, I would incorporate flexible assessment options. This would include allowing students to submit their work as spoken word recordings, visual presentations, or traditional written formats. This allows students who may struggle completing classwork or homework due to outside circumstances a way to use what skills they have to complete the work to the best of their ability. As said above, a reflection journal or a warm-up journal would be an effective change to the lesson sequence, as it also allows students an outlet for self-expression and a way for teachers to know when and how to support different students. To further support these students with outside circumstances, I would implement a check-in system where students can privately share any concerns related to the class, how they are tracking, or anything they wish to speak about with the teacher once a week. This is effective and important as a trusting teacher-student relationship is essential in emotional and educational support for students as they feel valued and heard. By embedding relationship-building activities into classroom routines, that can create a more inclusive and understanding learning environment. This is important, as Howard says resilience is more likely for those who experience one or more safe and positive relationships with available and competent adults. Continuing that point, Green, Oswald, and Spears say these relationships can provide the at-risk child with a warm, supportive adult figure, which is essential in accommodating them in a classroom. Furthermore, I would collaborate with school support staff and other potential programs to ensure that students in need receive the additional support they require, such as counseling or mentoring and tutoring programs. How would each lesson ensure and promote the well-being and resilience of students? To foster student well-being and resilience, I would embed strength-based learning into the lesson sequence. Within Lesson 3, for example, getting students to create poems about their personal strengths and weaknesses would be an effective activity. This would encourage self-reflection on their strengths to help students develop a growth mindset and reinforce students' ability to overcome challenges as they acknowledge what they need to work on as well as acknowledging their strengths. As Howard says, those who perceive they have areas of competence are more likely to have resilience. To continue ensuring well-being and resilience, integrating supportive peer feedback that's focused on constructive and affirming responses would help students develop confidence in their ability and resilience as it gives them an opportunity to work on weaknesses or challenges they may have in a positive and affirming environment, which also promotes positive well-being. This approach assures the classroom remains a positive space for students to safely build resilience through self-expression and peer support. I would also integrate the teaching of resilient skills outright, such as how to reframe setbacks and manage stress through different exercises like writing exercises. As said by Pendergast and Main, coping skills are a social and emotional learning pathway to well-being. Having structured discussions or addressing resilience can boost students' well-being and problem-solving abilities. Also, building that connection with students can help to build their resilience. As Green, Oswald, and Spears say, students that attend a school with attentive, caring teachers are more likely to be resilient. Another way to promote resilience and well-being is through real-life examples of poets who have overcome adversity or poems about overcoming adversity. This would reinforce the idea of approaching challenges with a growth mindset and navigating challenges in life. Furthermore, opportunities for students to collaborate in their learning will further foster a sense of belonging and teamwork, which both strengthens student social and emotional resilience and also the well-being of learners. Thank you.